Hello, hello, hello. So I'm here today to share with you a hack that you can use to start shifting some of the responsibility for updating a progress tracker onto students. So here's what I'm going to try to achieve. I want a progress tracker wherein each kiddo can have really selected editing access. I want each kiddo to be able to edit just the assignments, just this row that pertains to them and nothing else. So here's how I go about doing it. Oh, and by the way, this is an example of a shared progress tracker. So it has not only the kiddos in the Gators for Science, but also for their English class, also for their homeroom, and also squad challenges. So it's really important that I get the permissions right and I don't end up accidentally giving kids access to edit stuff for my colleague's classroom. So the main way that we're going to do this is through something called protected sheets and ranges. So I go to data, protected sheets and ranges, and then I'm going to select the range that I want to protect. My first step is to protect all the stuff that I want no students to ever have access to. For example, this directions tab. I'm going to select all the cells in that entire tab by clicking here in the upper left-hand corner. And then over here to the right for protected sheets and ranges, I'm going to click add a sheet or range. It shows here that it is going to let me control that range for this entire directions tab. And then I can skip enter a description and just go straight to set permissions. Now I want only me to have editing access to that tab. Done. Let's say I'm also the homeroom teacher, so I could do it for homeroom. I'm going to say I'm the science teacher, and for my English teacher, Miss Flores, I need to make sure that she and only she has editing access because I'm pretending that she still wants to be in charge of updating her whole tracker and she doesn't want students to do it yet. So I click that whole tab. I click again, add a sheet or range, and set permissions here to include not just me, but custom. Also include Miss Flores. And then I would click done. I'll do that for each of the tabs that I don't want kids to access at all until I'm left with just the science tab. And here too, I want to lock down certain parts of this document. I don't want kids to change anything. For example, this first row, I don't want them changing any of the names of the assignments. So I click on the number 1 to select the entire row. I click add a sheet or range, set permissions to be just me. I also don't want any kids to change anything for the name columns or for the on-track symbols. So I'm going to select those 3 and do the same thing. Lastly, I don't want to have to worry about whether folks have made any changes in these empty rows, but I don't want to bother locking them down, just me. I'm going to get rid of them. So all of these hundreds of blank rows, I'm going to get rid of entirely by selecting, going to edit, and deleting. It'll make the page less cluttered that way too. I'm going to do the same thing with my extra columns. I can always add in the extra columns if I find that there's additional assignments over the course of the quarter that I need to add in. And same thing, I can add a row if there's a new student that joins the class. So I have selected all of these, and I'm going to delete the columns. So here's what it looks like when I'm done. Okay, so I've locked down the top, I've locked down the left-hand side, and now I want to start giving access to each student to only their data. So I click on that one, let's say that this is kiddo Kurt Douglas. So I'm going to select that entire row. I go back over here to add that sheet, or add that range, I mean, set permissions, and I'm going to select custom and add the student's email address. When I click done, a new window is going to pop up, letting me know that that student needs editing access to it. So I need to make sure that I share editing access. If I've already made this viewable by kids, I still might need to, it's still probably going to pop open that I need to change it to editing from view only. Because if a kid has view only access to the entire doc, it won't let them actually edit this, even though you say you're giving them permission in this spot here. So I give them editing access, share, got it, done. So one thing to know is that if you select different layers of permissions to the same cell in different steps, like I did for this cell here, I first gave only the teacher access to this entire column, but then I gave the student access to this whole row, so 2 actions on the same cell. Whatever the most restrictive permissions is that you set is the one that applies. So in this case, even though I said the student could edit everything in this row, I'm only really giving the student editing privileges to everything to the right of on track. And we'll test that out in a second. I'm also going to test out whether I can now add a new column and whether it will give that student the right level of editing access to that column. Because in theory, this is a kind of set it and forget it, where I set up the privileges once and I don't need to change it at any point again in the semester unless I'm adding new students. And the last thing is that you need to, once you started this process, make sure that you finish it for each student, ideally in the same session, because right now I've given this student access to everything that's not locked down. In other words, he can currently change Tavion's scores because I haven't locked down this row, currently change Merlis' scores because I haven't locked down that row, and so on. So now I'm going to switch over to the student screen. I'm going to test this stuff out. So the student can still see the whole doc. Let's go to directions because I locked that one down. When I click on one of the cells and I try to edit, this pops up. There was a problem. You were trying to edit a protected cell or object. Please contact the spreadsheet owner to remove protections if you need to edit. And that's going to keep popping up in any cell on this tab. The whole thing's locked down. Let's go to the Science tab. And let's test out whether he has access to change his name. Nope, same thing. But let's go over to this assignment here. So let's say the student has actually turned it in now. They want to communicate it and update their tracker. Yep, I can get rid of missing and I can go about highlighting it green. Done. But I can't change the name of that assignment. Let's see if I can make edits to this. I can. Can I make edits here? I can't. So the permissions I set are still good. Once you set at the beginning of the quarter, even if you haven't finished adding all of the columns for all the assignments, the rules that you set up will still protect the right pattern. The students still won't be able to change the name of it, and they'll only be able to edit their own row. Lastly, let me see if I can add a column as a student. I can't, and that's because I've protected one of the cells in that new row. Since in that new column, since I locked down the entire first row, it's not going to let the students insert columns, and it's not going to let the students insert new rows either. They will only be able to edit that one row that you gave them access to. Hopefully that helps. Take care. See you next time.